Howdy, 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 everybody. I hope everyone liked James's session. I'm always loving what he figures out on the login times, since that's usually the front thing that everyone sees. But now we get to change some gears here to some Citrix ADC loves and hugs, I can tell. We got a little bit of trivia with Jen here. So let's knock out this trivia and get into this cool session here. I've been clicking through some of the slides and I'm excited to see what we got cooking. All right, so we got some trivia. And you're going to see, if you haven't yet, make sure you've got your chat open so that you can see that, and make sure you put your LOLs and everything else in between there, and or questions. You can use the Q&A or the group chat. I'll watch both and help Jen get everything sorted, and we will rock and roll. So which insect can indicate the air temperature? Ooh, this one's like, I don't even... Does anyone know? Is anyone in here yet? Let's see. Whoa, man! It got fast quick. All right, so we got like 3 right answers right off the bat. It is the crickets. I guess that means Jiminy Cricket is extra cool then. So that. All right, let's go to our next one. And so, Jen, you'll put your email down here in a second. It's probably just coming. And that means Andy, if you want to email Jen when you get her email address in the chat, then you can go from there. All right. What is the hottest temperature on record for Omaha, Nebraska? I mean, that's got to be like 100 and something, right? I mean, it gets pretty zesty out there. Let's see. What kind? How hot does that potato get? 110, 105, 112. Okay, now we're just rolling now. We got all kinds of numbers. We're living the dream here. All right, we're gonna 108, 109. Okay, 109 was right. And is that Andy again? I'm trying. I gotta scroll back for a second to see if we got a double Andy here. So we had Steve 105 1. Nope, Travis W was the first person to say 109. That is hot. Is that a dry heat? I'm not sure, though. I think it's still pretty humid there from time to time. So I think that's pretty, that's going to be no fun. All right, let's get to our last question here. What is the coldest temperature on record in Omaha, Nebraska? This has got to be the cool weather where you can throw the boiling water up and it freezes in the air. Yeah, definitely humid. Yeah, y'all are swampy like me out here in Nashville. All right. -38, -50, -7. No, now come on. Maybe that's okay. We got some Celsius. Ooh, whoa. Yeah, because I don't know. We didn't say which one it needed to be, if it needed to be Fahrenheit or Celsius, but we're just going to go by the decimal value here. So let's scroll over to the answer, -32, and I think I saw that a couple into it. -38, -30, -12. Is it Andy again? Was the first one? -32, Aaron, -50, Yeah, it was Andy S again for the win. Double header. All right, well, cool. Make sure you guys email, and let's get ready for Jen here. If you don't know her, she is one of the Citrix user group leaders in the down south in the Florida. Not super close to Mickey Mouse, but I mean in the same state as Mickey Mouse and a space station. So I think with Mickey Mouse and space, we're ready to rock and roll. All right, let's kick it, Jen.
Hello, and thank you, CUGC, for allowing me to be part of this great event. Welcome, everyone, to getting started with Citrix Web Application Firewall. But before, a little bit about me. As Patrick said, my name is Jen Sheerin, and I'm in Tampa, Florida. I'm in my second year as a CTA. I'm also one of the local leaders for the CUGC Tampa Bay area and Women in Technology mentor. I have worked in end-user computing for over 10 years, primarily focused on Citrix, lots of NetScaler or ADC, still getting used to that new name, and in recent years, cloud solutions in Citrix Cloud and Microsoft Azure. I currently work for Presidio as a senior engineer doing delivery of Citrix and WVD solutions. So why use Citrix's WAF? Well, it's highly ranked. As a matter of fact, in 2017, NSS Labs ranked Citrix Web Application Firewall as #1. This slide shows use cases highlighted on Citrix's websites for defeating XML-based threats and PCI DDoS. But I have seen many other use cases like hospitals or college campuses are good examples. To answer the question, what is Citrix WAF? We need to start with the 7 layers of the OSI model, not to be confused with the 7-layer dip. So starting at the bottom, you have layer 1, or the physical layer. To the right, I gave an example for each layer. The presentation didn't work on the fly-in, so traditional firewalls typically protect at layer 4. What makes web application firewall so cool is it's at layer 7. So in the example, that's an HTTP or HTTPS layer protection. But wait, there's more. Another cool feature of WAF, it offers a hybrid solution of both positive and negative security model, or black and white listing. So what do I mean by that? Positive security model is everything is blocked and assumed bad, and rules are put in place to allow. The negative security model is based on the premise of protection from known attacks, similar to antivirus software where you would get periodic updates with known viruses. More to come on that and how ADC does this later. So how do we get WAF? Well, you need the premium or formerly platinum edition, or there is an optional module that you can purchase for the advanced edition. There's also a standalone appliance if you don't have an ADC. And interestingly, it can be upgraded via a software license to be a full Citrix application delivery controller. If I want to verify my license in the GUI, after I log in, I go to System, License, and here I can see the green check mark next to Citrix Web Application Firewall. So I know I'm licensed. But WAF is also available in the cloud. There are 2 options for cloud-based Citrix Web Application Firewall in AWS Marketplace, as well as with Citrix Web Application Firewall service in Citrix Cloud. So let's get to enabling. To enable the feature is easily found in the basic features in version 12, or you can enable it via the CLI. All the screens I'm demonstrating today are based on version 12, and I'm using the GUI for presentation purposes. However, you can use the CLI as well. And on a side note, version 13 did change from basic to advanced. So there are slight differences on 13 if you're already on 13. Before we are configuring, we should note that when you enable WAF rules, you are changing the application traffic for the ADC. The CTX article 131488 has all the details, and we don't have enough time today to cover all those items. It might actually be a whole session in itself, but I recommend reading it if you're going to use WAF. Let's look at WAF's engine settings. These are settings affecting all policies and profiles and all requests and responses by WAF. So to get there, I expand Security, Citrix Web App Firewall, and under Settings, I can access Change Engine Settings. To maintain the session state, WAF generates a cookie. The cookie names Citrix_NS_ID and cookie posts encrypt prefix ENC are the default names for the application firewall session cookies. They are well documented as such, but they can be changed. While the cookie is not passed to the backend, I will change these settings because I don't want a hacker knowing that an ADC is in the path of the web server. Another item to consider changing is CEF logging. CEF, or Common Event Format, is an open log management standard. WAF by default uses the Citrix ADC native log format. There's a couple of reasons to enable CEF logging. If you need to use geolocation login, it requires enabling CEF logging to work. The second reason you may want to use CEF logging is if your enterprise needs to collect and analyze logs in other tools such as Splunk. A common event format will be needed. Here is a side-by-side look at sample native versus CEF log. As you can see, the CEF log is more human readable and a lot shorter. Still on the settings page, a word about the reset learn data button. The learn data is stored in a SQLite database in /var/learned_data and has a limit of 20 megs. There are no alerts if it gets filled up, and learning will stop. Probably not a bad idea to reset before starting. When you reset the learn data, it doesn't affect the rules you have accepted on learn data or relaxation rules. So as a general rule, if I'm starting a project, I'll hit the reset learn data button. Before we get to configuring, a note about signatures. This is the part of the negative security model I talked about earlier. And it needs updating periodically, like antivirus definitions. The default signatures get updated with firmware, or you can update the signatures by downloading from the Amazon AWS website you see listed. You can sign up for alerts on Citrix.com, and I would recommend it. The signatures have been getting updated frequently, sometimes every month. And I have a demo to show you how easy they are to update. So this all goes well. I can access the signatures under the security section. Here I will select the default signature and go to auto update settings. I'll click check URL to confirm my ADC has internet access. And since I have internet access, I'll check the auto update box. The ADC will check every hour for updates, but I don't want to wait, so I'll just click the update version button now. And once I refresh the screen, I can see the new version. And that's how easy it is to update. Now on to configuring. Firstly, we must understand what we're trying to protect. So let's say I'm tasked to set up WAF on a load balance V server for an in-house developed web server. The developer that created the app no longer works at the company, so I have limited details. No matter what the case, I need to test, and it's always recommended to test rules before enabling. Luckily, WAF has the ability to enable in learning mode. I will take the lowest risk path by cloning the production vServer to a test server. That way, I can enable learning on the test vServer and test the rules before putting into production. So I'll create a profile, but all rules will be blocked and learning will be enabled. Then I'll create a policy and bind it to the test vServer. Setting up a clone is the recommended method. However, sometimes you have hundreds of vServers and clones may not be possible. In that case, you can set up learning in the same way, but be mindful there are risks involved. So WAF has a wizard to do what we just talked about. So let's see how this works with a demo. Under Security, I'll select the wizard under Citrix Web App Firewall section, enter a meaningful name, and I'll choose the radio button for Web 2.0, and I'll explain more about that choice later. I remove the true statement because I want to control the traffic, and I'll show you why after the demo. I'm going to make it easy for myself, and I'll use the expression editor to set up an expression to filter traffic to the destination IP address of the test vServer. So once I've entered in the IP address and click Done, now I can proceed to the next screen. Here, I'm presented with the security rules where I can remove all the blocks that are enabled. So I can choose Remove All Blocks to disable blocking, and then enable logs, and I will enable stats as well as logs. So logs, learning, and stats for all items. So notice in the wizard, there was no prompt to bind a policy. When using the wizard to set up WAF, the policy automatically binds to default global. This would invoke the policy for all the application traffic on all interfaces on the ADC. Now you can see why I entered an expression to filter out to the destination. If I had left it as true, it would have enabled learning for all of the vServers, including the production vServers. And I'm not ready for that yet. So let's see how we can set up WAF manually. The first step is to create a profile. So we enter a name for the profile. Here we have the radio button choices, as we saw in the wizard for the profile types. And we must choose one from the 3 profile types. Web application, HTML, which protects the HTML web traffic pages, and it includes common checks. XML application, XML SOAP, and Web 2.0 protects a combination. If you remember from earlier, the web developer no longer works at the company, and I don't have any details about the custom developed web servers. So when in doubt about the type of web application, pick Web 2.0. So after the profile is created, you have to select the profile and click Edit, and now I can get to those security checks on the right menu. And here, you'll see this kind of looks similar to in the wizard. I'll just deselect or uncheck all the block checkboxes and select and check mark all the learn checkboxes, the log and stat boxes, so that they're all check marked. we end up with disable blocking on all options and enable learning, logging, and stats. So we're not protecting anything yet. We're just enabling learning. And once I click OK, you have to do save and close and then done. So now that I have my profile created, I can go to step 2 and create a policy. I give my policy a name and then select the profile created in step 1. You'll notice here I entered an expression of true, but when I use the wizard, I set an expression to filter out the destination IP to the specific vServer. I used the filter in the wizard to separate the traffic because I knew the policy is bound globally when using the wizard. I may want to reuse this policy for another vServer, so I'm setting it to true. Basically, I want to demonstrate that you have options for separating the traffic. Step 3 is to bind the policy to a virtual server. So we go back under Security and Citrix Web Application Firewall section and select Firewall under Policies. And here I have the Policy Manager button where I can use the Policy Manager to bind to a load balance virtual server and then click Continue. Now I can select a new policy that we previously created in step 2 and hit bind. Notice the bind point is load balance virtual server, not global default like was in the wizard, meaning it's only bound to the specific virtual server. So the fourth and final step is to create a custom error page to help the user understand if they're blocked and what they should do. To set up a custom error page, you add under the import section. It seems a little weird. In this case, we'll select text. I enter a name, and the HTML code you see on the screen, I did a copy paste from Citrix's documentation. It has some goodies in there about changing to edit email and put in help desk phone number, etc. Now that I have the custom error page defined, I need to set it up for use. So I go back to the profile created in step 1, click Edit, and select Profile Settings from the right menu. Here, I can select the HTML Error Object Radio button, and in the HTML Error Object drop-down menu, select the custom error page we just created in step 4. So now that we have our rules in place, let's see what's happening in the logs. So I have another demo for us here. This demo will look at syslog messages under auditing to review what WAF learned. To help us out, I'll filter out the logs on the App Firewall module. As you can see, there are several entries that clearly state not blocked. Another nice feature is that from the syslog, I can actually deploy the rules to save me from creating the rules manually by just clicking Deploy All. So now that we've got those rules deployed, let's look for those rules and see what entries we find. So I have another demo here. I go back to the profile. So I'll go under Profiles and edit my profile. And then take a look at the relaxation rules. And I'll need to select the starting URL and hit Edit. And here I can see all of those rules that were enabled. And if I scroll over, you can see that they were deployed from the syslog viewer. So up until now, we haven't done any blocking. So in this demo, we'll turn on blocking and see what happens. So first, I'll go to the web page with nothing enabled so you can see what the home page looks like, right? There's my red WebGoat page. Now I'll go back under Security and Profiles. I'll edit the profile we created earlier and select the security checks on the right. So here, I'll edit the starting URL so I can enable blocking. And click OK, and save and close. And then done. So if I go back now to the same URL on my browser as before, you can see the page was redirected to another page. That doesn't look like the page we saw before. The user may not be aware of this redirection. So I'm going to go back to the profile, and this time I'm going to choose the profile setting, and I'm going to set up the custom error page we created in step 4. And now, when I go back to the browser and enter the same URL again, I get this custom error page with details and information on what I can do. There's an email address or a phone number. So to recap, I covered a lot of things there. I touched on what is Citrix Web Application Firewall and how to get it. I discussed the global configuration settings, renaming the cookie, enabling CEF logging, and why you should probably reset learned data before setting up WAF, how to update signatures and stay up to date with signing up for alerts on Citrix.com. I demonstrated using the wizard to set up learning, and we also stepped through the manual steps to create the profile, policy, and bind to a specific virtual server. I showed you how to create a custom error page that gives the user feedback when blocked. And this can be very useful, as in the case with my task where there was limited or no information about the web application. If a page gets blocked unintentionally, the custom error page will give details for the user, and they can call the help desk to track down the cause of the block and then set up an allow rule if needed. I hope I was able to demonstrate how easy you can get started with WAF and inspire you to give it a try. Thank you.
Cool. No, great job. I like the cookie rename. Most people never get that, right? So then it's easy to detect when you're being detected. So we've got, looks like 2 questions. First one is, how long do you suggest running in learning mode before enabling blocking? I think that's going to be a mileages vary, but what's your normal rationale?
Yeah. It all depends, right? It's not a one size fit all kind of answer. You wanna you want the users to test their normal behavior, right? Because sometimes you have backlinks into pages on the web server side, and it is possible. I've actually had that happen to me where it turned it on and it broke a page, and we didn't know why. If it wasn't for the custom error page, we would not have been able to track it down. No, it all depends. And it's definitely something that you need to have interaction with your developer. I'm not a developer. And so I would need to consult the development team that wrote the app, or, to figure out the details.
Yep, no, for sure. And then what do you have any information on expected ADC bandwidth or utilization increases from WAF? What do I know I've always seen it's a slight uptick depending on how busy that VIP is that you've got a WAF responder policy on that it's doing its dance with and everything. What's been your experience there?
Yeah, it's definitely busier. I don't know that there's a percentage number given. I think it's still, again, about the usage, what's the normal usage and how much more you're taking up.
Yep.
Expect more. That's my final answer.
All right. Bloop, that was good. Then we got Nia. Okay, this one's a good one. How does WAF protect against ISO layer 7 attacks? So layer 7 attacks, which is the good 0-day application weirdness kind of things.
So you have ISO, as in CD ISOs? I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, I think it's just layer 7 attack.
Okay. Yeah, so you're inspecting the traffic at that layer, right? So HTTP traffic mostly, or XML, SQL injection. It depends on, there's a long list, and I can't remember them all. And also the signatures. You have the signatures of known attacks, right? Like the SQL injection.
Yeah, cross-site scripting, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yes.
There it is. Good. All right. I think that one's good. And then we got Seth with one here. Is there an easy way to update the signatures with ADM, for instance?
That's a good one, Seth. Hi, Seth. I'm not sure about that. I don't think so. I have to do some research on that.
But I do agree that would be cool, since so many people are using ADM as kind of that moderator of the whole system to help do logging and backups and config snapshots and everything else. So it would make sense that if it was able to play a part of it and maybe make it a little easier on you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yep, feature request. Yep.
Yes, definitely feature requests. I imagine you could probably customize something with Nitro or something like that, right? But
yeah, that'd probably be like, I think Esther could be rocking that with all her PowerShell Nitro stuff that you and her have worked on, and everybody else. Like, that's way nerdier than me.
Yeah, she's a lot better than me.
All right. Do we have any more questions? We got a couple more minutes left. We got one from Richard. Centralized learning has.
We lost Patrick. So I think Richard was saying something about centralized learning has indeed come to ADM. I didn't know that.
But if there aren't any other questions, I would encourage everybody to go ahead over to the sponsor session. The demos will start in 10 minutes, but you can take the time to get your passport questions filled out. by visiting each of the sponsors and asking questions in the question box to the sponsor staff, and then filling out the passport that you can find on the CUGC lobby. And make sure that you get that submitted before 3:30 to be eligible for $700 Amazon gift cards. So go ahead and do that. And thank you, Jenny, for an awesome presentation. We really appreciate it, and for joining us today at CUGC Great Plains. And again, everybody head on over to sponsors. You just go to the lobby and choose your sponsors to visit. And we will see you at the next webcast. All right, we will see everybody shortly.
Thank you. See y'all.